Good evening. I'm Chance Seals in Washington. Thank you for being with us tonight. We begin this evening with breaking news. President Biden just announced a U.S. operation that killed Al-Qaida leader Ayman Al-Zawahri. He was Osama bin Laden's deputy and helped plan the 9/11 attacks in 2001. He later rose to power after American forces killed bin Laden in 2011. Speaking just a short time ago from the White House, the president said the U.S. did not seek the war on terrorism, but will always protect the innocent.
For decades, he was the mastermind behind attacks against Americans, including the bombing of the USS Cole in 2000, which killed 17 American sailors and wounded dozens more. He played a key role in the bombing of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing 224 and wounding over 4,500 others. He carved a trail of murder and violence against American citizens, American service members, American diplomats, and American interests. And since the United States delivered justice to bin Laden 11 years ago, Zawahiri has been a leader of Al-Qaida, the leader. From hiding, he coordinated Al-Qaeda's branches and all around the world, including setting priorities for providing operational guidance that call for and inspired attacks against U.S. targets. He made videos, including in recent weeks, calling for his followers to attack the United States and our allies. Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more. People around the world no longer need to fear the vicious and determined killer. The United States continues to demonstrate our resolve and our capacity to defend the American people against those who seek to do us harm. You know, we make it clear again tonight that no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out.
On Newsy this evening, we have live team coverage to examine just exactly what this operation means abroad and at home. Let's bring in Newsy White House correspondent Willie James Inman, Newsy political director Andrew Rafferty, and Michael Kugelman, deputy director and senior associate for South Asia at the Wilson Center. Michael, let's start with you. These instances come up very few times in any president's tenure. This is a big night, not only for him, but for the world. What is the operational significance of killing Al-Zawahri?
Well, I mean, this had been the top person in Al-Qaida for many years. This was bin Laden's successor. And we could talk about how Al-Qaida as an organization has been weakened significantly in recent years, and we could talk about how Zawahri may have lacked the power and charisma of bin Laden, but he was, at the end of the day, the head of the organization that organized and carried out the 9/11 attacks. And so for that reason alone, that makes this operation incredibly significant, certainly symbolically, but also from the perspective of U.S. national security interests. So just a big achievement, a big counterterrorism achievement all around for the U.S.
Willie, walk us through what we know, because the president actually opened up quite a bit and some background briefings have been happening. What do we know about how this unfolded?
That he approved this operation last week, and we learned from a senior administration official that this strike, this killing of Al-Zawahri took place at 9:48 Eastern this past Saturday night. 2 Hellfire missiles were fired via a drone in this area in Kabul. And this house, he was standing on a balcony. He was killed there. There were no civilian deaths. The president mentioned that his family, Al-Zawahiri's family, was not affected in this case, was not hurt or injured in this case. And the president also said that he talked about these over-the-horizon capabilities last year when the United States pulled out of Afghanistan. And this is something that the president touched on a little bit, saying that the United States will go after terrorists wherever they are if they threaten the United States. And U.S. officials say that the president was deeply involved in the decision-making process of this operation, asking questions about how it could potentially affect civilians in the area, how it could potentially affect hostages that Al-Qaeda holds. So clearly, officials saying the president was deeply involved in this, albeit while he's recovering from COVID, Chance.
Right, and these are those after the fact situation room recollections that you get of who said what were the stakes, what did we not know. That these are not easy calls to make while you're in office. And Andrew, We all remember 2011. There were these huge spontaneous celebrations right outside the White House. There was a togetherness, kind of, when Osama bin Laden was killed that many Americans felt, including, people who were kids. They hadn't even remembered it, but they felt like it really meant something. Al-Zawahri doesn't have the same name recognition. Like Michael was just saying, he maybe doesn't have the charisma that OBL had. But what is the effect here?
Yeah, well, I think there's two main effects here, and that is, number one is just if you talk to counterterrorism officials, people of the administration, they will point out that he was one of the old guard of Al-Qaida that had a sort of reach and ability to get message out and for that message to resonate among the network of Al-Qaida in a way that there's not clear if anyone else ever will be able to, because of the new iterations of how the group has transformed and evolved really since bin Laden's death, which he's been in charge of it really since, they say, June 2011. And then, of course, there's the other factor, and that is for the families, families not only of those who were lost on September 11th, but the families of those men and women who were lost in Afghanistan fighting the war on terror. And again, it's another chance for Joe Biden to make very clear that although we have pulled out of Afghanistan, he has not forgotten about September 11th, and he will again fight any sort of terrorist threats, no matter where they are.
Michael, under then President Trump and now President Biden, the Taliban was supposed to keep Al-Qaida out of the country. So he was living there. He was moving, moving houses in Kabul. Could have been planning, could have been staging things. We don't know. Did the no Al-Qaida in Afghanistan thing just kind of fall apart?
Well, I think so. It's been clear for quite some years that, even though Al-Qaida is not as powerful as it used to be, that it still had a significant presence in Afghanistan, in great part because the Taliban continued to shelter it. And now the Taliban's official line is that it no longer has a relationship with Al-Qaida. But those of us that follow these issues had always thought that was a very suspicious claim to make. And, the fact that Zawahri was taken out, not in the middle of nowhere, not in a cave somewhere, but in a conspicuous home right in the middle of Kabul. Clearly the Taliban had to know he was there. And also there are reports that the person that owned this house where Zawahri was found and killed has links, is actually connected to a top Taliban leader, one of the Haqqani brothers. So Al-Qaida never really left Afghanistan. It may have gone quiet. It certainly has not been as active and potent as it has been. It's sort of deferred to the activities of its satellite groups based elsewhere in the world, North Africa, the Middle East, and elsewhere. But it still had a presence in Afghanistan. And there's been multiple reports over the years that have indicated that Zawahri himself had been in Afghanistan for quite some time as well.
In a presence. Willie, President Biden was a no vote, pretty famously behind the scenes as VP during the bin Laden raid. Maybe thought the stakes are just too high or was just arguing the other side of it when everyone else was saying yes. But he has even more on the line now as president to go after this. Do we know why he decided, yeah, let's go for it?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that the president has touched on before, Chance. We know that the U.S. doesn't have that massive military footprint that we once had in Afghanistan, with what many described as a disastrous pullout out of that country. And this president, although he has a lot of things on the domestic front he has to fight, he has a lot of bad poll numbers he has to deal with, this is certainly something that they can look to and point to as a success, although the White House isn't necessarily celebrating this as a political win, so to speak. But this president saying that he will seek to protect Americans from these terrorists. He noted previous operations to kill leaders in ISIS as well earlier this year. So this president has taken action in previous operations like this, and this one today, I'll note, was done via a drone. It really just spells out those capabilities that the president talked about after that disastrous pullout of Afghanistan last year.
Well, Andrew, of course we know that politics is nothing compared to human life. But when Osama bin Laden was killed, it was a feather in the president's cap. We're close to a year out from it was a bungled withdrawal from Afghanistan. President Biden, he's been dogged by that. This is a much different headline and outcome. Does that impact how the public sees him as the leader who takes on these challenges?
Well, I think it helps. And if you go back to about 11 months ago, when the Afghan withdrawal did happen, that was really the point when Biden's popularity really started to slide. And it wasn't just because of that. There were a number of issues going on at the time. But he has gotten high marks for U.S. aid to Ukraine, how the U.S. has steadfastly helped and responded to Russian aggression in Ukraine. Afghanistan has not been that same level of popularity for this president. But again, it goes into a larger narrative. There have been a number of kind of political victories that Biden has had over the past week. This certainly is among them, and it kind of builds on this narrative that something might be shifting. There might be a little bit more political momentum in this White House than there has been for a long time.
And as Michael pointed out, Al-Qaida is fractured, it is diminished, but it is not gone. So, of course, the national security apparatus keeps their eye on them. Michael Kugelman, Andrew Rafferty, Willie James Inman, thank you all tonight.